My microphone's not working. Everybody else is working.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
The broadcast can still hear you, Chair.
Okay. All right. If I just shout then, we'll go on that basis. Welcome everybody to this evening's meeting. Just like to remind everybody that we are being broadcast live. I need to start off with some housekeeping. In the event of a fire alarm, everybody should immediately leave the building to the nearest door and assemble in the car park near the parent's house. I also need to advise those present that the Swindon free Wi-Fi password is sounds, layers, slices, all lowercase, all one word. Okay, so I'll start with apologies for absence. An apology for absence has been received from Councillor Robbins, Leader of the Council, hence the fact I'm in the chair seat tonight, recognising for him. Also like to welcome Alex Holly to the meeting, the new Service Director for HR and OD, who's advertising for Sonia Norman. Is it working? Right, okay. Right, I'll save you from shouting. Moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded that they should declare any known interest in any matter to be considered. Members should also make a declaration should it become apparent during the meeting that they have an interest in the matters being discussed. So just going to pause to invite any members to make any declarations at this time. Okay, and then just remind members again that if any interest occur when the meeting is discussed, then they can flag at that point. Moving on to agenda item 3, minutes. So this is to receive minutes of a meeting held on the 11th of December 2024 and to confirm their accuracy. So I'm going to take the minutes read and agreed with unless members want to raise any issues at this point. Okay, thank you. So on that basis, the minutes are being accepted as a true and accurate record. And I'll sign the minutes at the end of the meeting. Okay, moving on to agenda item 4, which is public question time. We haven't received any advance notification of public question time. Are there any members of the public present who would like to ask a question? Okay, I can't see any hand show. I'm just conscious I can't quite see everybody there, but I think we're okay. Shout if not. Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I'm heading on to agenda item 5, exempt items, exclusion of the press and public. So I need to ask Cabinet to agree the resolution for excluding the press and public. This refers to agenda item 11, appendix 1, page number 3. Monitor, so do I need to read out the text?
Mine's not working. Just primarily, Chair, just to say that you're excluding under the Schedule 12A, Part 1 of the Act, and to ask members to agree that they're content with that. Okay,
can I get members' agreement?
Okay.
Thank you. What I would like to ask Cabinet to agree is to reorder the agenda and move the agenda item in question, which is agenda item 11, to the end of the meeting. It just means if we do need to move into the exempt session, we don't have to ask people to leave and then bring them back in. So can I just have Cabinet's agreement to proceed on that basis? Excellent. Thank you very much. Right. In that case, we can move on to the reports for the meeting. So agenda item 6 is the budget, 24-25, 25-26 even, pages 17 to 96 on the agenda. So I'm going to ask Councillor Small to introduce the report and propose recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. The report covers two areas mostly, which is the outturns for December of the 24-25, and then we go on to look at the budget proposals which will go before Council for the 25-26 budget. There's also an area of the medium-term financial plan included within the budget as part of this report. The report, therefore, looking at the initial budget, which is the 24-25 25 budget, you will see that there are, we have at the present time, overspend as per the December report of around about 5.8 million, let's go to the right page, which we hope will go down as things continue within this budget year. And I know already the work being done by officers has already seen that figure slightly reduced since this report was written, but that will be reported as part of the March budget papers. Some of the pressures being faced within the budget, and where we have made some additional savings of the 1.8 million, which is the difference, is that adult services core packages are reduced by 500, around about 500k. This is due to a factor of reduced demand, but also some of the when bills are paid when we get things in from the money in from the house service as well. You'll also see that there is within the economic and sustainability, there is a saving around about 299,000, which is as a result of the management efficiencies and also to reduce some of the overspend they've done. And it's the same with the end of the enabling services of 122,000, again, where they took actions to control costs. Finance and audit, you'll see there's a change there of that 4.2 is for the pay award. That gets kept centrally until then it's released into the budget when we know what all the pay awards are. And then also we've had a contribution for the release of some of the contingencies of around about £500,000 has also helped towards that bottom line figure. Moving on here, we have just to point out a couple of things which are within the report. As you'll notice that some of the pressures are going around about our budget, overall budget, about 80% of that is actually on social care. So therefore it does put a tremendous pressure on the rest of the budgets when you're looking for savings, when a lot of these social care expenditure is statutory expenditure which we have to carry out as an authority. You also see that the housing account chair has a overspend predicted at 1.7 million, but of that, the makeup of the increase in that has been through about 241,000 in total the increase. 140 is to do with the rebate we have not received from the utilities. I know work's still being done on that in that area, but also an extra 155 on repairs. This is due to the fact that we've got to sub out work to outside contractors due to vacancies within the direct labour force. So therefore, one of the differences. Overall, though, Chair, we're actually probably now going to actually have a surplus by the end of the financial year due to the decision that we will put the £5 million off of the debt, which has been the previous administration's policy. So therefore, we at the moment we're not using that extra £5 million, have a surplus of £3.3 million in the housing revenue account. Moving on to the 25. Before that, looking at the savings delivery, just to say that there continues to be work on the savings programme. There is 80% savings, slightly down on last where we had 82%, but there is within the budget is a contingency to factor in whether that's not making the overall savings targets, and that's prudent management of your budget to do so. The dedicated schools budget still remains a worry. It's 8 million overspent, which is double since last year, which I said last time. It's about £500,000 worse than it was when we last reported, and it means now we have a deficit of around about 16.4 million in the dedicated schools budget. I know work is being done by our children's services colleagues to try and turn this around. I know they are working hard in doing so, but there's still some major work to be done to try and factor in some of those areas. Moving on here to the next year's budget and the provisional local government settlements and the local government settlement, you'll see that overall Swindon has had a benefit of around about £3.3 million in grants, and if you add on top of that the 1.7 million that we got to offset some of the national insurance payments, we've got an extra £5 million coming in from central government, which has to be most welcome. In particular, on top of that, there is about another just under £100,000, which is in the final settlement, 17,000 for the new homes bonus, and 80,000 for the children's social care pension grant. And it's my recommendation that will be gone into the reserves to offset the budget contingency for next If you look on then onto page 30, you'll see that there is also additional 700,000 being put in grant to tackle homelessness, and also about the Rush Sleepers grant. And I think this has to be welcomed. So we've got this additional money, but if you're only paying and it has to be spent on trying to tackle the issue rather than just find additional accommodation and not resolve the issue, but tackling the issue at source, you're then not putting a sticking plaster on it. You're actually trying to heal the issue and make a problem, which is better for our budget, which we're spending over £1 million extra each year on homelessness budget. But it's also for better the people that are homeless, because they get into permanent accommodation or they don't get into the homeless situation in the first place. Those are the sort of things that we've been lacking in this council for a number of years, not just in homelessness, but in other areas where the prevention measures which can help reduce the on-costs, like in social care, have been taken away, and we're now paying the penalty of higher costs at the end when we have to carry out those statutory functions and statutory provisions. And this is a prime example of that, Chair. If you look to the proposals then for next year, you'll see on table 4 in the report the cost pressures that we face as a council for 25-26. The report also outlines the 26-27, 27-28 issues of that. You can see that this year's spending pressures has been £30 million, which is one of the largest chunks. There's also been some funding changes, so this is small. We have done saving proposals, which are outlined at Appendix 1 within the report, which left that gap of £14.7 million. The part of the budget preparations, we've also considered what they call exceptional financial support, which is, I think, a misnomer in its title, because it's not actually support, it's just extra financial, shall we say, flexibility. I think that the Director of Finance summed it best when she said that capitalisation of revenue costs is a more accurate description. It's something that's happened many times in the past, and what we sought from the government's permission to use our capital, where we have capital assets of around about £1.4 billion, to actually use some of that, 14.6 million, to support our revenue budget in 25-26. The alternatives would have been trying to put council tax up, which we deliberately as an administration decided not to do. We felt that we all know that people are finding money tight, and to go above the 4.99% would not have been acceptable, and would have put an undue burden on the people of Swindon. If we don't go for this support, then we have to look to use our reserves. Our reserves are limited, as the report identifies later on in one of the tables. And we could have then been in a precarious position of maybe actually not going bankrupt, but in the sense of teetering near the edge and having to maybe go down the 114 route. For those who don't know, 114 is court seeking, saying that we can't balance our books, government inspectors are going to have to come in. So the only alternative then is, what would they have done? They would have sold everything. There would have been no democratic accountability for the decision making. They would have sold every asset that was available to be sold to balance the books. The other alternative would have been that we would have been merged with Wiltshire. Wiltshire pay extra £112 a year council tax more than we do already, would have put an additional on the people of Swindon without any rises on top of that. Also, we know what Wiltshire's attitude to Swindon has been over the years. I'm an ex-Wiltshire County Council, so I know how rural Wiltshire thinks about urban Swindon, and then they sold all our assets as well, because they all would have gone to County Hall, and we would have then lost the benefit and control of those. So this way, we take Swindon people looking after Swindon affairs, and we also maintain a balanced budget in the process. The net budget for next year is 188.382 million. I emphasise that fact is the net budget, because that is what we intend to spend in revenue as cash on our spending. The additional 14 million will top that up to 203,000 in total expenditure. That is the gross budget. The net budget will be 188,382, and that is a key figure that we need to make sure that we recognise as part of these budget proposals. If you look at table 6 within the report, Chair, you'll see that there are some comparisons about where Swindon sits when it comes to council tax level. As I've already mentioned, Wiltshire is £112 more than us, and if you look at unitaries, across the country, we are about £120, off the average for the unitary authorities, who have to carry the same responsibility as us. And I would also point out that some councils have been given permission to go above the 4.99%. One of them, Somerset locally, and Birmingham, another one of our largest authority, are 7.5% council tax increase. Bradford 10%. We're seeing Windsor, Maiden, and Newham at 9%. And that's councils of all different colours and descriptions. So it's not just it's not a thing. Local government is facing very, very tough times after 14 years of Tory austerity, and 44% of councils, particularly in this position, those who have actually got social care element to their budget, are going to be possibly in this position in the future, having to look for extraordinary financial support to help keep their budgets flowing for another financial year. If you move on then, Chair, to the next part of the report covers the transition prayers in Swindon 2028. And this is our project to revitalise the council and in simplistic terms, to manage Swindon Borough Council more cost effectively and to deliver the Swindon plan to make Swindon build a better Swindon, make Swindon a greener place and a healthier place to live. But also, it's about, as I said before, prevention, about putting in those services which will prevent pressures in adult social care, prevent pressures in the children's services, and also then delivering those when we do need to provide that statutory provision in a more cost-effective way, which actually benefits young people or older people within our community. And one of the primest examples of that is when we've looked at investing £20 million in a children's home for Swindon, or children's accommodation within Swindon. That not only will make it cheaper for us as a council to deliver that facility, but it means that instead of that young person living 30, 40 or 200 miles away from Swindon and the people they know, they're actually going to still be looked after and cared for in the area and where they feel safest and where all their friends are. That has to be better for the young person in the long term. Moving on to Table 8, looks at our investment requirements for 2020, Swindon 28. And this is with the £3 million programme, which is the flexible use of capital receipts, which the council has done probably for the last 10 years or more, where we're looking to use capital as a short-term investment to actually have long-term revenue savings. And so there again, this is to continue that we're going to support the transition going forward. Other than that, Chair, the rest of I've just highlighted some of the work that we've done, and the final bit would be the reserves policy, which you'll see Table 9. The key factor in the reserves, Chair, is to point out that we have our general reserves at 8.5 million, which cannot be touched unless it's a really emergency. Our flexible reserves is the cash flow at 7.6 million, which has gone down because of the cost pressures and the overspends we're having. And we've got the risk reserve, which is in there for that, managing the risk of managing our risk. And then the earmark reserves at 9.7. Now, of that 9.7, we are looking at that areas to see if there's any flexibility of being able to use those reserves for our to support our revenue budget. There won't be much, but there may be a few million that we may be able to actually eke out of that to support revenue delivery. The other reserves are listed with the housing revenue account of 9.1 million, which is one of the key figures, and you'll see that the DSG deficit is in there at 16.4. Chair, moving then to the recommendations. The recommendations are listed at page 18, sorry, page 17 and 18 of the report. There are several elements. First of all, 1 to 6, 2.1 to 2.6 is for us to note. 2.7 to 2.10 is for us to approve the environments which are within the report, which are minor. And then finally, our recommendations to full council. And our recommendations to full council, the key elements are a net budget of 1.88382 million, which will give us a council tax rise of 4.99%. I do move then, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Small. I'm happy to second that report. Are there any questions from colleagues? Okay, so I can see Councillor Turner and Councillor Heenan have indicated to speak. I think I saw you first, councillor here. Do you want to come down to the table and, sorry, suddenly, yeah, you're right. Okay, do you want to come down first?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I had to go first because I've got another finance meeting to go to with a much smaller budget. I chair that one, so it's important to attend. Thank you to the Cabinet Member for Finance for details of the budget. I do appreciate how difficult it is to be in this position, and all credit to the directors, the officers who have done the necessary work to try and deliver it. I'm pleased that you pointed out about the exceptional financial support. We've also spoken to the Section 151 officer, and she made it exceptionally clear that there were one of two routes really, which is council tax increase, which is a political decision on your part as the administration, or the prospect of a Section 114 effective bankruptcy of the local authority. It is a sticking plaster. We're looking at, as you know from your figures, it's a difficult situation in the following year. We'll be looking for exceptional financial support again. And again, a decision will have to be made between increasing income for the borough, which obviously we're looking to do in the long term through our estates rationalisation. But the reality is that we are, as I say, just over another year away from another cliff edge of exceptional financial support or a rising council tax. And at some point, that circle has to be squared. So really, I suppose I'm asking you, looking ahead a year, you're doing this year, what do you feel the prospects are for next year? We're going to be having the same difficult conversations again.
First of all, we're hoping that we're going to have a 3-year settlement within place next year, which I think will help us with our budget planning, which is a key element, I think, for the change, and I think something to be welcome. There is that consultation process going through at the moment, the government taking place on the and I think everyone I've spoken to, whether it doesn't matter what political persuasion you are, they all argue that a 3-year assessment would be more beneficial because that would give you a planning process. Whether it's good or bad, at least you know where you are for the next 3 years. I think that will help us and hopefully plan forward for the next 2 or 3 years. Secondly, I think there's to me there's an element of whether or not within that 3-year planning process that you're able to budget over that 3 years. So you haven't got to balance the year 1 if you balance by year 3. I'm not saying that will happen, but that would be useful, and that makes a different complexion on where you are with your balances. To answer your point directly, in the sense of where I think, yes, it's going to be tight next year. I wouldn't be the first to deny that, and I won't be the first to deny that we could be faced with a situation today as we are going to be next year. I hope things will be better. The element of worry, and I think it's, again, this is the Swindon 2028 delivery, and keep bringing that in, bring savings in factors on that. We will always be looking for savings programs and making our budgets more cost efficient, but also the budget we set up with is the budget we end up with as well, whether any pressures are eased out and ironed out at the end of the financial year. Those issues have to be factored in, and if we can keep to our 188 million budget, then I think the pressures on us for next year will be less than they are this year as an end result. But I don't want to disagree. The issue of extra financial support will be probably on the agenda next year. But if it's a small amount or large amount, it's to be seen.
Thank you. And I suppose to follow on from that, the 3-year management would undoubtedly be welcome. The LGA comment within the budget report indicates that local authorities across the country will still be facing pressures because at this stage, regardless of a 3-year settlement, we are burdened by something that Wiltshire aren't, which is that sheer level of adults and children's social care. And they're in a better financial position as a result of that. You rely, this administration, this council, and others around the country rely on the government taking a step to relieve that pressure. And other than the 3-year financial management, there's no indication at this stage whether the government can either afford to or will take the steps to unburden us, which means that we will be bumping along the bottom for years to come.
I think your description is a good description of public finances in general. And when you have 14 years of austerity from the previous government, where they've not supported local government funding, but not also general funding within the government overall spending basket, it makes things difficult. There isn't that surplus there. And some of the challenges you'll see in the Chancellor is generally facing and trying to get the economy regenerated is the only way that I think that we're going to see additional money into the public finances. And so therefore, yes, there is an issue there for government, but where they're going to find additional support for local government. As part of the review is also the business rate review, and there's also the review, there's the room of council tax review and all the grant review. The grants in particular, the RSG, has very much been tilted to the rural areas, I think, over the last few years. We've seen that partly change this year with the rural supplement disappearing, but it still isn't very supportive of those areas which have got greater social demand. And your own example of that, what Wiltshire faces to what we face is a prime example of that. And I know government funding, in the sense of the formulas, will look to change it to actually bring some more balance to that, which therefore could help us. We've seen in the past that there's more the element of the business rate changes, and we get more of that business rate. We are very rich in the sense when it comes to business rates compared to other authorities. And if we got our full whack, probably wouldn't have a budget deficit today. But our underlying problem is that our base is too low, and that's just has been caused by the Cameron era of the freeze on council tax. Whilst it sounds good at the time that we did freeze council tax, and it meant that people weren't having to pay additional money, but our base didn't go up. So our base, was buying. It was probably 5-10% by the end of the 3 or 4 year period that took place. Our base was buying less than what it would to start with, so it was already under cost pressure. And I just worked out roughly it's around about £20 million we'd have more within our budgets if we'd had actually put the council tax up by the inflation rate, or by the 4.99% over those 4 year period. I think maybe 3.99 million, but it would have given us an extra 20 million to start off with that we would have actually up to date. And if you add the increase onto that, you're probably looking at an additional £2 million on top of that, and that would have been our budget. We would have been financially solvent and wouldn't be having many of these conversations today. So those are we are where we are, and you just got to try and do what you've got. But I don't expect the government to give us a great deal extra, because they're facing the same problems that we are, and the whole of local government is facing the same thing. You only have to look at the local government review, local government associations comment about the number of councils that are in similar positions we are to know that's true.
Okay, thank you for that. So obviously, rather than your last year's description of the coastal path, the sort of cliff edge walk at the moment, aren't we?
I think we're still tethered to the path.
Thank you.
And I'll just come in on that and just give you assurance, Councillor, it is the council's transformation, that Swindon 2028 plan that will lead, that's how we make that investment in the preventative services, that will reduce the demand for adults and children. Also, control on in-year spending remains in place, so we'll continue to be vigilant and aggressive in driving down savings. And just to reference a comparison with Wiltshire and their various pressures, just to note that their dedicated schools grant is significantly higher than that in Swindon, so they're facing their own pressures as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heenan.
Good evening all. Are the microphones still working? Yes. Yes. Good luck all with the budget in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
So my questions start with, there was 114,000 underspend last year, and the report says there's a 5.8 million overspend this year, and you're expected to use 9 million of reserves in this financial year. So Appendix 2 lists those reserves. Which lines do you think you'll be spending, that is currently earmarked. So, it's, for example, 170,000 for the youth justice service, donations held by purchasing exhibits for Lydiards,
Cash flow would deal with the.
in its entirety.
Cash,
Its entirety.
cash. What's in the report is what is predicted to be the cash flow reserves. Okay? Cash flow means it's surplus cash. It's not allocated to any. That is money that we have in the bank that's probably been invested at the present time. That is, sorry, spearmint is probably the wrong word, but it's not allocated to any budget or anything else. This is pure cash flow, as it says. Surplus money.
So the budget shows that you're able to produce the first balanced budget in Swindon's history, and the Swindon 28 programme is only estimating a 2.1 million savings in the year ahead, and we've got 14 million overspend. Section 340 highlights that there's a budget gap in every future year, and there's only an appendix that says there's an EFS support expected of 70 million if we can't make the savings over the next 3 years. So how are you proposing to close the gap of 55 million over the next 3 years?
We're working on it. That's all I'm going to say at the present time. We haven't got, I haven't got anything else to answer your thing. We have a Swindon 2028 plan. Is one of the first things we were looking at. Other issues which are like costing and how we save in making the organisation more efficient, how we deliver more cost effectively, but also it's about prevention. I'll go back to things. One of the reasons why we have some of our budget problems is years ago in our family centres, and which we haven't got any longer, closed by your administration they have. And if we had those now, some of the pressures we have in children's services wouldn't exist because they would be dealt with at the family centres, and children would not have had to go into care in the first place because the issues that families, that young people, the person was facing would have been dealt with through the family centres and resolved.
So you've heard to Wiltshire Council in your summary, and Wiltshire has a 500 million budget and double the population of Swindon, and they're reporting on 1 million overspend this year. Have you spoken to Wiltshire or any other local authorities to learn lessons to improve our performance?
One of our issues is that Swindon, and again some of our problems, is that when we became a unitary, a lot of, I'll use children's services again as an example, is most of the like care for young people was outside of Swindon. It's in Wiltshire, but outside of Swindon. And when you look at some of the care homes they had at Round, and just to give an example, they're far lovely places, old manor houses, which are being done to support young people. And so we've always had to export when it comes to supporting young people. Again, something that should have been done a long time ago is looking to where we can make that investment into those services to reduce our costs. So that is one of the areas that we're looking at. But we're always talking to all councils, and I mean the leader regularly speaks to a number of councils and council leaders, but also we speak to the LGA and the peer review. As you remember, we've had the peer review in from the LGA, which is very positive and very supportive, but they give us advice on how to go forward, and we use that advice to figure out how we're going to try and change the council.
So the budget.
Sorry, Councillor, could I just ask you how many questions you're intending to ask?
We've got 5 or so.
Well, I think five is reasonable. Yeah, okay, carry on.
As soon as you scrapped the scrutiny side of it last year, this is the first opportunity to talk about your budget.
There was a scrutiny meeting of the budget in December, and
You set not
the opportunity to put it on the work programme for more recent meetings. So I think 5 questions is reasonable. Please continue.
Okay, the budget assumes that the government will agree to grant you extraordinary financial support. And if the answer is no, then you'll have to agree an emergency budget. What kind of measures will you have to consider to avoid a Section 114 notice being issued?
We've been told by central government that the indications are that it's favourable. We still don't know, or won't know until the letter comes, but we are continuing to planning on that basis. If there is a negative response, then we will take the necessary action to present a budget to council, which balances.
Can the council meet the requirements of the LGA Finance Act 88 without financial support being agreed?
If you mean, can we balance the books so 114 doesn't actually happen? Yes, we can to ensure that happens. I'm actually confident we can probably do that.
If that's the case, why haven't those proposals come forward for you to discuss tonight?
Simply because we're taking £12 million of savings out of the budget, which are mostly efficiencies. What you would see is the whole decimation of every non-statutory service within the borough and things which people rely on will then disappear and make Swindon a lesser place for the people there. We have a clear agenda and a clear mandate given to us as part of the Swindon plan, and standing on our 3 missions of making Swindon buildings about Swindon, making it a greener Swindon, and also creating a healthier Swindon. They are our missions which we've been elected on, and we've got a clear majority and clear mandate to deliver to the people of Swindon. Part of that regeneration is the regeneration of the Swindon Town Centre and the Heart of Swindon plan. They are key factors, and one of the areas we want to do is make sure that we're investing in our centre to then bring economic success to Swindon. Economic success will increase land value. Land values will increase more development. We're looking to try and get an additional 5,000 homes within the centre of Swindon, which will then mean that we've got more people living in town. I know it will be extra services, but also at the same time it increases our council tax base, which gives us a greater income what we're receiving as a council.
3, 6.
Councillor Healy, that's 5, not 6 questions. Could you make this your last question, please?
Oh, it's been 3 so far.
I'm happy. Go on.
Well,
Yeah.
So 362 points out the government agreed to compensate local authorities for the increased costs with the employees' national insurance tax, and there's no funding for the impact of commission services. So how much extra do we need to fund that hasn't been covered by government?
We have 1.7 million given to us by the government. About 553,000 is for the housing revenue account. So therefore, it is, I think we've done well. We received that amount of money from central government. They didn't have to do it, and it's acknowledging the fact of the extra burdens they placed on central government. They've been giving us that extra 1.7 million, which I welcome.
My final question then is, Swindon received the lowest increase in core spending power in the last 3 years. So what representations did you make to the government to ensure Swindon received a fair share?
We actually done very well out of the settlement incentive. When you look at the additional money that we received, we actually received around about £5 million more, a lot more than has been given to us in cash terms for a long time. And I think it's a bit rich that we have a Conservative at the bottom of the table who talks about government funding when in 2013, 40% of our council tax, our council budget was funded by central government, and now less than 3% is funded by central government, and the burden has been put onto local council taxpayers instead of through central taxation. And never forget that Lord Pickles, as he is now, was the first to the Chancellor every time they were looking for austerity cuts. He'd come along and say, yeah, I can find my 25% budgetary cuts in my department, but then he'd say, local councils, go and find that 25%, and we've had to deliver those cuts every time. So I find it a bit rich coming from a Conservative councillor who says that a Labour government hasn't put much money into Swindon when his own council over a number of years slashed the funding we got from central government to support local services.
That just makes one final question. Please, could you confirm the council budget for 2013 versus 2025?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay, I think there's over 150 million difference.
It may be. That's because we've had to cut everything because of the Tories.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Thank you, Councillor Healy. Are there any other questions from around the table? Councillor Grant?
Yeah. Could I just, not working, but could Councillor Small just confirm, I think we just said that this was the first unbalanced budget in Swindon's history, but just confirm that it is a balanced budget and the use of capital receipts has been a way of balancing budgets over the past 10 years, you say. And can you also say that for the people of Swindon, that what this budget actually delivers is a non-excessive council tax rise? You hinted at other gone way above the 4.9%, and there's no redundancies, as far as I can see, happening across Swindon Borough Council. And that, for the people of Swindon, is, in my view, a very good budget that we are putting forward tonight.
You're dead right there. The capitalisation of revenue cost has, in its smallest sense, been around for a long time with the flexibility of capital receipts to put money into cost saving issues, but also extend what the extended financial support system has been around a while as well. But the interesting difference is that from that is that the Labour government's not punishing councils for going down that route. If the previous Conservative government, you put a 1% supplement onto every bit of borrowing not just new borrowing, but existing borrowing as a punishment for applying for that. So you were putting that councils automatically into a financial burden before they even a penny. So even like us, where we're looking to use capital receipts rather than borrow to support 14 million, we would have still been punished by 1% premium being added to our borrowing costs. And that surely, it doesn't have any local authority trying to balance its books. But you're right, the Swindon plan is delivering. We're delivering a regeneration of the Swindon town centre. As part of that, we're looking to build the capacity to deliver for Swindon and deliver the services. We're still being able to empty the bins on a regular basis and carry on the successful work that Chris has done over the last year with the new services. We're looking to put new initiatives in place which will make things more cost effective. And the other things that we're trying to do is to invest in, and I think this is important, preventative services which actually deal with the issues before they become a problem. That way we will save a lot of money. We will save in the long term, loads of money will be saved by bringing in the prevention services to actually support people, and people's lives will be better for it.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks. So I was just going to conclude by saying, as for the majority of councils, it's been a huge challenge to prepare this year's budget. I think as Councillor Sumner acknowledged, I just wanted to thank Councillor Small, the key finance officer and the finance team for their efforts to compile the budget before us tonight. Also to thank officers for delivering savings in last year's budget and identifying savings in this year's budget and working constantly to bring down the overspend. Despite the challenges, I'm really pleased that we are committing 188 million net revenue to invest and deliver service this year. We have found ourselves in a difficult financial position this year, and this is largely down to increased costs for the key council statutory services, particularly to support the town's vulnerable adults and children. Completely right. Not only from increased demand, but from increased provider costs. Like every council, we have to balance this demand with investment in the town centre, securing growth, delivering residents' priorities, whether that's fixing roads, improving the local area, as well as investing in Swindon, delivering the Swindon plan, and all that key transformation preventative work that Councillor Small has referenced several times tonight. I would like to emphasise that our approach to invest in the town and invest in services and work to transform the council is in contrast to the previous administration, who took short-term decisions, cut preventative services, didn't invest for long-term and relied on chipping away at the council's reserves. One example of this was the lack of investment in children's services, which meant we inherited a service which was rated as inadequate 8 weeks after we took control of the council, and which we as administration have now had to invest a significant amount of money and resources into. And we'll also see when we come to the HRA budget and having asset management strategy, the lack of investment there, which means we now have to invest a lot more to make sure our residents are able to live in the homes that they deserve. We have, alongside many other councils, had to seek permission from the government for some additional flexibility with our finances. As Councillor Small has emphasised, we're seeking a capitalisation directive which allows the council to spend its own money in a way not usually allowed by local government financial rules. I think the key thing to note is that the financial challenges we are currently facing are short-term. Spending controls remain in place. This capitalisation directive is a measure to see us through until we can complete our transformation work, reduce demands, make us operating more effectively, and some of our longer term investment and other revenue sources start to deliver. Can I ask Cabinet's support to agree recommendations 2.1 to 10 on pages 17 to 18, and to agree recommendations 211 to 213 on pages 18 to 19, which would be a minute confirmation to council. All those in favour, Joe will nod. Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, on to agenda item 7, which is the capital programme 2025-2026. Councillor Small, you're not getting a break for a while, so it's over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quicker on this one, I promise you. Moving on, this is the capital programme for 25-26. You'll see that as part of it, as in identified in 3.5. There will be an additional borrowing of roughly 180,000 for next year, which will have repayments of costs of around 10,000 per annum, but also this will be met from existing budgets. The good news is that the government have given us an extra 3.4 million for high needs capital allocation, of which 3.3 million will be spent on SEND capacity. This will mean that around about 50 places provision to increase the provision at the specialist unit, but also there will be also a creation of 96 extra places at Key Stage 2 at 4 primary schools throughout the borough. There will also be a secondary allocation around about 60 places for Key Stage 3 and 4. This has to be good news to support our young people, and hopefully some of that might actually help some of our DSG issues as well. The additional 100,000 that will be used for adaptations in schools to meet high needs provision within the individuals, so people can stay within their schools for longer and to remain in mainstream education. There's also a proposal in here for an additional 466,000 for the move of OK for You. This is made up of 286,000 from savings in the FSEA's capital programme project and 79,000 borrowing previously mentioned. The move, this will see OK for You moving to the Swindon Family Break site at Gorse Hill, and in the long term, over a 2-year period, we're looking to save 133,000 because of this change and support of the capital programme. The review of the capital programme, as it is at the moment, has taken place and will continue to take place to ensure effective delivery, where we can reduce stuff which you think is no longer needed, or it can be restructured in different ways. We are looking at that, and so therefore to bring cost pressures down. Excuse me, Chair. And also, if you look at Appendix 1, and Appendix 1 highlights how the capital programme strategies is to be fulfilled. This is a requirement and part of our annual presentation to fund your council. I move the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Howarth, I spotted you first. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, I can't see anybody indicating. I would just like to also welcome the £3.3 million for the high needs allocation, which we used to expand special needs education. I think that's very, very much needed across the town. So I think that's good news. Can I ask colleagues to agree recommendations 2.1, 2.3 on pages 97, and note that will also go as a minute for confirmation to council. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you very much. Okay. Councillor Small, we're down to you again. We are on to item 8, which is the Treasury Strategy Statement 25-26. That's on pages 137, 184 of the report.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all thank the finance team for putting this paper together. It's one of the most driest things we probably have to present to Cabinet. And the annual report, I think, or annual statement, I think, is more dry than the normal quarterly reports that we come up with. But yeah, so there's been great work done on there to try and explain as simplistically as possible our financial position. The Treasury strategy, otherwise the report that comes to us on the Cabinet is the Treasury Management Report. It's the same principle as the same because it's based on this strategy. Looks at how our capital expenditure plan is developed. It also deals with the associated potential indicators, which is how much we can borrow against how much we have as a council. It looks at levels of borrowing we would need to support the council's programme. It also looks at makes predictions on interest rates, which thankfully are starting to go down, which has, for our capital programme, is very productive, but maybe sometimes for our cash flow, it's not always because we can then get more money from it from interest. So it has a negative effect sometimes. The medium-term strategy, or the issue of the £5 million for the housing revenue account taken off debt, it's being removed, and how that would be factored in to the long-term investment planning for the housing revenue account. which I would emphasise to people is separate from the general fund, and housing revenue account is all to do with council housing and council rents. No council tax money goes into that account whatsoever, where it comes to borrowing or actually to the day-to-day management of the estates. It's all dealt with through the rents. It looks at our borrowing policy on short-term and long-term investment, and we're looking to try and, where possible, to go for more short-term borrowing because it's more sometimes more cost-effective. It also looks at who we borrow with and who not to borrow with, and our strategy for also lending money and who we lend money to. Sometimes fellow councils can be a very good, you lend money to a council at a good rate for maybe only a couple of weeks. And that's all again to do with cash flow to chair rather than anything else. So I move the report.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Watts, thank you very much. Any questions from around the table? And I've noticed that Councillor Heaton's indicated. Councillor Heaton, do you want to come to the table, please?
Thank you again. If you're pleased, now we've got 4 questions.
I think you get 4 answers and another thing, but yeah.
Probably not. So the report says Swindon borrowed £5 million at 7% interest rate from another local authority. Which council will be paying £350,000 to use their money for 90 days? And should we be taking all necessary action to avoid that cost?
We will always have to, sometimes during the year, borrow money to help support the cash flow. That's a regular thing that happens to all councils. I'll give you an example that I know the fire authority had some surplus cash recently, but then to a local authority at a very good rate, around about 5% similar sort of figure to what you're mentioning, and it's over a very short period of time. This is not new, it happens in all local authorities. We also, at sometimes a year, will actually be the other way around. We'll be lending money to other people because we've got surplus cash. I don't know the authorities offhand, but I will give you that answer. But in general, this is standard practice for the local authorities, and we will always look for the best rate for when we're borrowing and also when we're investing. And we have a very good, competent team that's been there for a number of years who serve your administration as well as they're serving ours. And so I've got confidence in them to do their job, and I don't see there's any need to change the policy. And this is, as I said, what we've got borrowing was standard practice within local government full stop.
Thank you. It is the highest in the last 5 years. So debt at 1st of April 2023 was 353 million, and the report says that April 1st is expected to be 385 million. What is Cabinet signing off as the number 2930? So in 4 years' time, what are you expecting debt of this council to be?
I think at the present time we're hoping it to be as low as possible, but I can't give you an exact figure because you don't know what the figure will be yet.
And so the report says 575 million.
That is the figure at the present time, but there's no guarantee that will be the same. We might have something coming with a capital receipt that we weren't expecting, which certainly would completely change that figure. So it's too far away. That is a prediction based on our best planning assumptions.
The next agenda item states that Cabinet is expecting to borrow at its peak 273 million over the next 12 years. So debt will be over 700 million. Why isn't this referred in Treasury Management or any other Cabinet reports?
So I'm just seeing on the net, I guess they use. I think you've got your assumptions wrong there.
The report clearly says 273 at peak borrowing requirement.
I think you've got your assumptions wrong there.
Last year's Treasury Management report highlights that debt per council property would fall to £6,572, but tonight's Cabinet you've expecting to increase it to £22,723. That number isn't included in any other report or anything to do with the HRA and the strategy involved. Do you think that Treasury Management is the right place to be holding that number, or should it be part and parcel of the HRA strategy?
No, and as also made it clear before, that please do not get confused between HRA and general fund expenditure and mislead the people of Swindon to think that as council taxpayers, they're paying money to support people in council houses. That is not true. The council and all the costs related to council housing are paid for by tenants and tenants alone. And council tax money does not go into the housing revenue account. And where it sits within the Treasury strategy is the appropriate place for it to sit.
I am just quoting your own reports, by the way, not making anything up.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ian and Councillor Small. Any further questions? I was just going to add my thanks to those involved in putting together the report, but also for those working on this throughout the year. Managing our financial resources effectively is key to the council's ability to deliver the Swindon plan and deliver services to residents. Can I have a second? We've got a second over to you, Councillor Watts. Thank you very much. Okay, in that case, I'm going to ask Cabinet to agree recommendation 2.1 on page 137, which again will be a confirmation to council. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 9. Councillor Small gets his break now. Housing Assets Management Strategy 2025-2030. Councillor Howard, please could you introduce the report proposed recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. This asset management strategy has been put together through the hard work of officers over the last few months because it wasn't one in place before this that dealt with the issues at hand. It clearly lays out the plans needed to bring our housing stock to a decent standard that they're currently not at. The stock condition survey that's been undertaken is informing the plan, and the survey has been escalated so that it will be completed hopefully in June of 2026. This means that the strategy will be data-driven and the components and replacements of components will deal with the data rather than just ad hoc replacements as has been currently being done. There are 2 further projects mentioned within the housing management strategy that, due to their uniqueness, will have separate reports about the Cabinet in the new financial quarter. These have been costed but will require a dedicated plan. These are the high rise and the railway village. These 2 areas have been underfunded for years, and ad hoc programmes of repairs have been done, but not a complete proper repair on either. The issues are contained within the report, and I know it's 90 pages, and I'm thinking some people have read it, and we'll have more detailed in future reports, and there will be consultations on every single thing that we're going to be doing from the railway village, the high rises, and any of the general stock. The first year of this asset management plan is really where we are currently, and we'll be continuing down that until we've got all the completed stock condition survey in place. This report has been shared quite widely, and it's been shared with the Housing Improvement Board, which is set up, which is cross-party working and also has tenants on the board. I'd like to thank again the officers, with special thanks to Andrew, Liam, Luke and Nina, who worked tirelessly on this. While preparing for an inspection at the same time. I ask Cabinet to agree to the recommendations in 2.1.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. I'll second the report. Are there any questions from colleagues around the table? Okay. In that case, I was just going to add that I'm really pleased that we're presenting this ambitious programme and with the commitment to invest 250 million in our housing stock. It's about protecting our assets and raising standards for housing tenants and their family. We know we have some particular challenges of generally ageing housing stock. We've got some listed buildings. A lot of our stock is built with non-traditional construction methods, which present technical challenges when it comes to repairs and maintenance. I think we also now understand the extent to which the lack of investment in and proactive maintenance of our stock over many years has led to the deterioration of some of our components and left us with a bigger repair bill today than it needed to. I'm really pleased that this programme will start to deliver many of the improvements our tenants deserve. Updated bathrooms, kitchens, central heating systems, as well as roofs, doors and windows. As a ward councillor with 3 high-rise blocks on my patch, I'm particularly pleased to see the commitments to a long-delayed investment in the high-rises. Also welcome the fact that we're investing in the railway village, which is one of our key heritage assets in the town. I'm really proud of what the strategy refers to as our no regrets approach to delivering investment. We're not going to shy away from delivering, making the difficult decisions, doing the right things to improve housing for our residents. Can I ask colleagues to then agree recommendation 2.1 on page 187. All those in favour, please show.
Was there a second? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, the next agenda item is agenda item 10, the housing revenue account, budget report 25-26. That's on pages 281 to 310. Councillor Howard, back to you, please, to present.
There are a few recommendations within the report too, but these recommendations, if agreed by Cabinet tonight, have to go as a minute for confirmation to full council. The recommendation, which has already been referred to in 2.1, is the 5 million that we paid extra that we're now asking for this to come back because it's a voluntary contribution to decrease the debt that was incurred by the government when we decided to keep our own housing stock. The council is also asked to recommend the housing revenue account proposed budget that's set out in Appendix 1 and 2, and also to approve the housing revenue capital proposed budget 25-26 and the 5-year capital programme budget, which has been referred to in the housing asset plan, in the housing management strategy. And also the 30-year plan that's in there as well, that's in Appendixes 3 and 4. The council is recommended to approve the proposed social affordable rent increase for housing of the HRA, which is 2.7 this year, which is the 1.7 CPI plus the 1%. This has been taken out to consultation with tenants. It's had consultation in the civic, it's gone to the community cafes, it went out through tenant focus. It went through TASH and it went through the sheltered voice, and we've had no negative result from the tenants. In fact, at the TASH meeting, one person said, "Oh, as low as that, that's good." So some of them are pleased, and also to approve the recommended parking and leasehold and garage charges for 25-26. And the usual at 2.6, that the council be recommended to authorise the Director of Housing to seek authority from the Secretary of State to extend permission to continue providing a budget of 200k, which helps tenants who can't afford their housing to actually apply for money to help them with their rents. So those are the recommendations for Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Small, I think I saw you first. Are there any questions for Councillor Howard? So what's?
I'd just like to reiterate what a fantastic piece of work this is and how difficult it's been for you over the last few months. And, this is, and you have the officers. I think we should. That.
I mean, it's the same. The officers that have worked on the asset plan have had to work heavily on this plan and bring it into fruition. And I can't praise them enough for what they've done.
Councillor Small.
Yeah, I just want to think it's good to see that the balanced budget proposed very cost pressures a year, which the budget was to overcome, which you asked to be welcome as well. The other point I like to make is that how much I welcome the £5 million voluntary additional paying off our debt and stop this. I think it's very important for two reasons. I think if we had our housing stock, which was of a decent home standard or above, we would be in a different ballgame. But we're not. We have, from the previous agenda item, quite clearly identified there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done and invested. And it begs the question why that money was spent paying off debt when it could have invested in actually doing council tax repairs over the last 10 years or more. And if you look at the amount that's been paid into that paying off debt, around about 50 to 60 million pounds, if not more, what that would, and whether or not we have a bill now of 250,000 if a lot of that work had been done 5-10 years ago instead of paying off our debt. And the other key thing to remember is that £5 million also bought a lot more 10 years ago than it does today, and a lot more would have been able to be done with that £5 million. So that's to be welcomed. I think, as my colleague has already said, there is a very good hard work being done on this to get the budget to where it is, and I welcome it, and I look forward to supporting it with you during the coming year.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, can't see anybody indicating to speak. I'd also like to echo those the thanks for all the work that's gone into this report and the previous reports. And also, I think the carefully considered decision to cease paying the 5 million repayment of debt, I think is absolutely the right thing to do. Due to the underinvestment in stock and the investment we now need to make, it's another invest to save measure. Also note that we have had to put up rents by 2.7%. We do recognise that some of our residents, many of our residents are facing financial hardship. But this is the minimum that we need to do to ensure that we can currently continue to make that investment in our properties. Again, I'm also pleased that we've once again made a commitment to provide a budget of 200k under the discretionary housing payments, which will help any of our tenants who do find themselves in financial difficulty or struggling to make payments. Okay. I'm going to ask Cabinet to agree recommendations 2.1 to 2.6 on pages 281 to 282. Just Councillor Howard said, the minutes for confirmation to Council. All those in favour, please show. Excellent, thank you very much. That's passed. Right, now, this is where I'm going to end up confusing myself because we have pushed the item on creating children's homes within the agenda, so we're going to move on to agenda item 12, which is a policy statement which I am presenting. So this is pages 323, 334. So I'm pleased to present this year's pay policy statement. The policy sets out the remuneration of chief officers, that of the lowest paid employees at the council, as well as the relationship between the remuneration of chief officers and non-chief officers. This is something that the Localism Act 2011 requires all local authorities to agree and publish. We need to do this by the 1st of April each year. So as Cabinet, we are asked to review the statement, recommend for Council via a minute of confirmation that Council approves it and authorises its publication on the website with any updated information in April 25. I do need to advise Cabinet that since the papers were printed, a small amendment made to Appendix A that we just need to note and agree. So it's the changes to the final bullet point on page 3 of the appendix, slightly incorrect. We need to remove the reference to European elections, which was included in error because we no longer partake in European elections. So it should read, working during local parliamentary, police and crime commissioner or referendum are made. And just to add that this amendment will be made and will be in the final version, which is published in April. So on that basis, can I ask for a seconder for the report, please? Councillor Sheikh, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay. In that case, then, can I ask colleagues to agree recommendation 2.1 on page 323 and just to note that the change to the appendix is advised. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Okay. Right, we are now then moving on to the agenda item 13, possibly, school admission arrangements policy 2026-22-27. Councillor Sheikh, over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank the team who prepared the report, especially Alison, who's here today. The coordinated admission arrangement for 2026-27 has been outlined in the details. I can't think how quickly the year's gone, but we're ready coming for next year, which is a very big positive. I just want to sincerely pass my thanks to Alison and the teams for their support and getting all of the in-year admissions on time. We all know that families moving around Swindon and coming into Swindon how challenging that can be. And just to give you a highlight of what those numbers look like, said that the numbers of in-year admissions is quite high, as we all know, but teams receive 200 applications per month online. and that they have to allocate out in a timely manner. For the academic year 23-24, we received 2,381 in-year applications of children moving within Swindon and moving into Swindon as well. And I suspect that will get more demanding as families move with the aspirations we have to build more housing in Swindon. 1,252 in the applications received year to date, which is why I think the in-year coordinated process is very much needed, and it's important for it to be on time and published in advance as well. We're also in bullet point 3.18 who opt out of this, but it's not something that we're not aware of. But the report also outlines our PAN, which is our published admission numbers with list of schools in 3.26, looking to reduce the numbers as well. But I'm proposing the reporting point of view on the local government's recommendations for bullet points 2.1 to 2.5.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder, please? No, Councillor. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, in that case, I'd just like to add my thanks for the work in officers in getting this report together, and also those who participated in the consultation. Clearly, the schools admission arrangements are really important for young people in Swindon, and their adults. It's really important the process works efficiently, particularly noting the high number of in-year admissions moving into and around Swindon, as Councillor Sheikh highlighted. In that case, could I ask for Cabinet's agreement to recommendations 2.1 to 2.5, which are on pages 335 to 336? All in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's agreed. Okay, we are now going to return then to agenda item 11, which is creating homes for Swindon's children on pages 311 to 322. Just to remind colleagues that we will need to move into exempt session if anybody wants to talk about the contents of the appendix. Councillor Dixon, could I ask you to present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So firstly, I would just like to thank the officers for the work that they've done on this. Dawn, the commissioning team, David Chapel for the work on the report, and also Seth as corporate director, and Lisa Anthony as well for the work that bring this forward. I'd like to pose the recommendations which are on page 3, which is to note the financial analysis of the report, which is in the exempt items, and authorise the corporate director of Children's Services to identify a property suitable for purchase and development into a children's home and finalise a business case, and to then report back to a future meeting of the Cabinet for final authorisation with a full business case. I'd just like to highlight a few areas in the report that I think are important to draw out, and why we are actually, bringing this to Cabinet. And I think it's, as it highlights in the purpose and reasons of this report, as a result of the high numbers of looked after children, there's increasing placement costs, and we need to ensure that we provide locally for children in Swindon, and we need to remodel and look at where we can offer housing that is appropriate for children. As you Cabinet will recall, in August 23, we had a sufficiency strategy which identified how the type of accommodation and the needs of children that we care for, and the need for developing appropriate accommodation for children in Swindon. And that was supported by a full needs assessment, which highlighted the need to develop more appropriate accommodation that we could then provide for the children we look after. Looking ahead into some of detail of the report, as it states in November 2024, we had 320 children that we look after in children in Swindon Borough Council, and that number is expected to remain the same. But it's just over 40% of the children were living more than 20 miles from their original address. And this is highest that it's been since July 23. And our Ofsted inspection, as we've mentioned, Councillor Moore mentioned that earlier, that we have an inadequate Ofsted inspection that detailed the lack of sufficiency within Swindon, and this proposal will start to address some of that challenges around that. Moving on, looking at, I'm just sort of picking out relevant items here. 3.8 says that children and young people in care should have the right to be placed in a family setting as a first preference. But this isn't always possible due to continued impact of past trauma and also due to lack of availability to match a child in the right place. And in these circumstances, we wish to strengthen the role of residential provision as mentioned, which prepares for a transition to a family placement or a return to home. It's also noted as we go on in the report that there are increasing costs and the average cost in 3.9 can be over £6,000 to £7,000 a week for children's placements. Then we go on to state that there's a lack of provision, as I've already mentioned, and also moving on to 3.12. Children's homes will be operated by the council, Ofsted registered, and will include, provide therapeutic support, and it will bring children that we care for to Swindon. I think that's all I want to say, and I would like to just then move the recommendation. I think it's important to state then as well that we're tasking Lisa as the corporate director of Children's Services to run a full business case, and then it will be brought back to Cabinet for further discussion and approval. So it is to move the business case forward to the next stage.
Thank you very much. Could I have a second for the report, please? I think I saw Councillor Shake first. Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions? Okay, can't see anybody indicating. I would just like to welcome the proposal. It's clearly not desirable that 40% of our children are placed outside of Swindon. Do everything we can to reduce that number. Clearly better for our looked after children if they're placed close to friends and family locally, and also potential cost savings that could result from this. I'm also hopeful that this will kickstart a longer term productive partnership with providers, which means we might be able to look to place more and more of our looked after children in local settings, improving outcomes for them. I also wanted to note the eye-watering costs of weekly placements that Councillor Dixon outlined in £6,000 to £7,000 a week, which I think speaks to some of the early conversation on the budget in terms of the pressures and costs. Not just from demand, but from providers. And just to note that the government's announced plans to review fees and consider caps for these children's homes, children's home providers to reduce fees. So I think this is a really, really positive report. Could I ask then Cabinet to agree recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 on page 313? All those in favour, please go. Excellent, thank you very much. That's carried. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance and participation.